So the first thing I'd like to start off today with is the meanings of the words or the term الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا as used in the Quran. I know I've made similar statements in the past, and some have considered those statements very controversial. I stand by my view. I'm yet to be convinced of an alternative view. It is my contention, Allahu A'lam, that when Allah uses the word الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا in the Quran, I'm not talking about how the word kafir is used anywhere else in the Quran, that Allah is not referring to all non-Muslims. That's a very important thing to understand. From the context, it's very clear that when Allah speaks about those who've disbelieved, الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا, He's extremely angry at them. And He describes them in often cases as people who have no hope whatsoever. سَوَاءٌ عَلَيْهِمْ أَأَنذَرْتَهُمْ أَمْ لَمْ تُنذِرْهُمْ لَا يُؤْمِنُونَ. It doesn't matter whether you warn them or not, they're not going to believe. Well, are there non-Muslims who eventually end up believing? Sure. That happens all the time. And so to use the word, the Qur'an's term, الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا, those who've disbelieved, or al-kafirun, to describe in general all non-Muslims is problematic. And it's problematic for multiple reasons. Because, Allah is, non-Muslims, obviously Muslims know, we all know, that Allah does not hate humanity. If Allah hated humanity, or Allah decided all humanity is going to end up in hellfire, then there's no point of the message. There's no purpose. And there are other groups of people that haven't yet believed, about whom Allah says some interesting things in the Quran. Allah will describe them as قَوْمٌ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ, a group of people that have no knowledge yet. They don't know. لَا يَعْقِلُونَ, they don't understand yet. Or He'll describe them as people that are ghafil, they're unaware, they're heedless, they don't have a clue. These are all different kinds of people that are being talked about. One of the most interesting places in Quran, like as Surah Al-Bayyinah, this came in some detail. لَمْ يَكُنِ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا مِنْ أَهْلِ الْكِتَابِ وَالْمُشْرِكِينَ. Some say this min is bayaniya. I actually happen to hold the view this is min at-tab'idiyya, wallahu a'lam. Those who've disbelieved from among the people of the book, and those who've disbelieved from among the mushrikeen. In other words, the act of kufr is actually a final, the truth has become clear to me and I reject it anyway. That's the act of kufr. Not the state of being a non-Muslim. The state of being a non-Muslim is not being a kafir. That's just the state of being a ghafil, maybe a mushrik, maybe from the Ahlul Kitab, maybe a ghafil, maybe qawmun la ya'lamun. It could be any one of those things, but a kafir is someone who the truth has become clear to, and then they've suppressed it, they've rejected it. Which goes back to the linguistic meaning of the word also. Kafara, to bury a seed into the ground. A kafir was used for the farmer who buries seeds in the ground. Meaning the seed is there, but you're not letting it come out. You've covered it up. Those who cover things up. Which is why in the meaning of covering up, the taf'il form of the verb is used for burying sins. يُكَفِّرُ عَنْكُمْ سَيِّئَاتِكُمْ. Allah buries your sins away from you. Right? That's how the term is used even in a literary sense. In any case, when you read these ayat, it's important to know that because, especially in societies like America or even in other parts of the world, I have friends in places like Sri Lanka and other places where somebody used to be Hindu or somebody used to be Buddhist and some family member became Muslim. And now they're reading the Quran and they read إِنَّ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا سَوَاءٌ عَلَيْهِمْ أَأَنذَرْتَهُمْ أَمْ لَمْ تُنذِرْهُمْ لَا يُؤْمِنُونَ. Those who believe, doesn't matter if you warn them or not, they're not going to believe. And he's like, is this talking about my mom? This is about my brother? He's going to go to hell? No, there's no hope for them? So it's important that we understand who the Quran is talking about and what place. Having said that, in the ayat that we're dealing with at the moment, you have to understand the context and the historical place of Surah Aal-e-Imran. Surah Aal-e-Imran, you could argue it took a long time to be revealed, so it's not in one shot. Some parts of it, you can say second year of the hijrah of the Prophet ﷺ. So some commentaries a little bit after the Battle of Badr. So it's, which happened somewhere in the second year, in Ramadan of the second year of the hijrah. After that, the surah starts getting revealed. Some of these ayat keep going on concurrently with Surah Al-Baqarah for many years. Some of this commentary is clearly after the third year or late in the third year. Why? Because it's commentary on what happened after the Battle of Uhud. Right? Some of this includes commentary or discussion with the Christians that came, an emissary group that came from Najran who heard that there's a prophet who claims he's a prophet after Jesus. We want to know what this is about, so they wanted to come check him out for themselves. And they stayed in Al-Masjid al-Nabawi and they discussed with the Prophet ﷺ. Those ayat are in the surah too. This is second or third year, again. So roughly third year. So this is the time in which these ayat are coming down. Now in that context, the Quraysh have already done their damage. Most of the Quran was revealed on the people of Makkah, the Quraysh. they've clearly understood what this message is, and they've rejected it through and through. Actually, how deeply penetrated the Quran was in Makkah, Allah describes it with a visual image, سَالَتْ أَوْدِيَةٌ بِقَدَرِهَا. That it's like a flood, the water went into every nook and cranny of a valley. Makkah is a valley, right? Surrounded by mountains. So he describes it as like the revelation came from the sky, like a flood, and it flooded every street, every corner, everything got wet. Meaning everybody was exposed to the message of Quran in one way or the other. People heard about it. And the society knew. And their leaders rejected it anyway. In any case, this is the first, when you see الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا in Madani Quran, the first audience that it's referring to is the people who rejected the Prophet in Makkah. That becomes the common term for them. Okay? الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا. Sometimes, implicitly, it means a couple of other groups. It means the leaders of the Israelites in Medina, the rabbis of the Israelites, who knew from the study of their own book that this Quran is from Allah, and they rejected it anyway. So the knowledgeable among the Jews and the knowledgeable among the Christians who knew that this is true and they buried that away, الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا can be an implicit reference to them also. There are those, we will see in the historical context and the time that this occurs, that there's a narration of Ibn Abbas we'll read. I was going to read that to you at the end. Actually, you know what? It's better I even start with that now. I'll just read that to you now. And this is Ibn Abbas radiallahu ta'ala saying, أَنَّ يَهُودَ أَهْلِ الْمَدِينَةِ قَالُوا لَمَا هَزَمَ اللَّهُ تَعَالَى الْمُشْرِكِينَ يَوْمَ بَدْرٍ. The Jews of the people of Medina, the general population of the Jews, said when, this man is claiming to be a prophet, and then he won the battle of Badr. And they knew in their scripture that this prophet will come and God will give him victory. So they saw this victory against those who worship idols. هذا والله النبي الأمي الذي بشرنا به موسى عليه السلام ونجده في كتابنا بنعته وصفته وأنه لا يرد له راية. He said, we swear to God, this is the prophet, the unlettered one that Musa alayhi salam told us about, that Moses told us about, that's going to come, and that he's going to, that we find in our book with the exact description, with the exact qualities, and he will not, his flag will not be put down. In other words, he won't suffer loss. He will be victorious. وأرادوا تصديقه واتباعه ثم قال بعضهم لبعض. This is the بعضهم لبعض العلماء منهم. علماء سوء منهم. Okay, so then they were ready to follow him. The general population was ready to follow him, ready to go after him and become members of the Ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, until some of them said to others, some of them meaning the more knowledgeable among them who didn't want this mass conversion into Islam, they started doing a counter campaign. لا تعجلوا حتى تنظروا إلى وقعة له أخرى. No, wait. Let's just see how things play out. Let's just see if something bad happens to him. And it is in this meantime that actually some of the leaders of the Yahud, Banu Qaynuqa, Banu Nudayr, they were starting to go to Makkah and say, listen, whatever happens, we'll be on your side. And if you need anything from us to put him down, we're with you. Because we're starting to lose our customer base. So we need to protect our people and keep them in their religion. So secretly, they were now starting to work with the Quraysh. Even though they have a peace treaty with the Muslims, this is what the foundation of the Medina society is, this was starting to happen. Anyway, لا تعجلوا حتى تنظروا إلى وقعة أخرى فلما كان يوم أحد ونكب أصحاب رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم شكوا. And when Uhud happened, and we suffered a pretty serious loss in Uhud, even though we didn't entirely get destroyed or annihilated, we suffered a loss. And actually that loss by the end turned into a victory, because after we were injured, we'll learn in Aal-e-Imran, after the Prophet was injured, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the Muslims were injured, min ba'di ma asabahum al-qarh, right, after we were deeply injured, there was news that maybe Abu Sufyan has gotten wind, or Khalid bin Walid has gotten wind that the Muslims are injured. I don't know, we shouldn't have left them alone. We should come back and finish the job. So they were going to come back and have a second wave attack on the Muslim army, which was already injured and demoralized. Because the Prophet ﷺ had by this time been hit. He had passed out. He was unconscious. Some Sahaba thought that he's been killed. And Umar bin al-Khattab in one narration just stuck his sword in the ground, sat on the ground. What's the point now? Like, he was just completely demoralized. And then the Prophet woke up. His mouth was filled with blood. They ran up the mountain to escape the attack of the enemy. The Quraysh, talked trash at the bottom of the mountain. We have Lat, we have Uzza, you have no Lat and no Uzza. So they talked trash. And they left. And then they thought maybe we should come back and attack them again. And by this time, the Muslims are broken. They're just broken with what's happened. And the Prophet ﷺ says, now we won't wait for them to come and attack us. We're going to go after them. So they're injured, and they're supposed to get up and go for a second wave, not on defense, on offense. And Allah comments on this and says, الَّذِينَ اسْتَجَابُوا لِلَّهِ وَالرَّسُولِ مِنْ بَعْدِ مَا أَصَابَهُمُ الْقَرْحِ لِلَّذِينَ أَحْسَنُوا مِنْهُمْ وَاتَّقَوْا أَجْرٌ عَظِيمٌ. You know, those who responded to Allah and the Messenger, even though injury had struck them. They got up and they went again. When the enemy got wind that they're actually ready for wave 2, they decided not to engage and ran away. فَانْقَلَبُوا بِنِعْمَةٍ مِّنَ اللَّهِ وَفَضْلٍ لَمْ يَمْسَسْهُمْ سُوءٌ وَاتَّبَعُوا رِضْوَانَ اللَّهِ وَاللَّهُ ذُو فَضْلٍ عَظِيمٍ إِنَّمَا ذَلِكُمُ الشَّيْطَانُ يُخَوِّفُ أَوْلِيَاءَهُ. They returned back. No harm came to the Muslims. Allah just wanted to see their courage, their ability to stand up. Anyway, الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا, one is referring to those people. Those who attacked the messenger, wanted to kill the messenger. Implicitly, it may also include who? The corrupt leadership of the Jewish and Christian community, that particularly the Jewish community actually, that were now starting to conspire with the Quraysh, but not the Jews at large. Anyway, coming back to this narration. Wallahi mahu, la wallahi mahu abihi. After Uhud's misfortune, I swear to God, no, it can't be him. Like, he can't be the Prophet. وَغَلَبَ عَلَيْهِمُ الشَّقَاءُ فَلَمْ يُسَلِّمُوا. And then this miserable opinion became the common view among them, and they wouldn't accept Islam. وَكَانَ بَيْنَهُمْ وَبَيْنَ رَسُولِ اللَّهِ عَهْدٌ إِلَى مُدَّةٍ فَنَقَضُوا ذَلِكَ الْعَهْدِ. There was actually an agreement, a peace agreement between them and the Prophet ﷺ, and they violated that agreement. وَانْطَلَقَ كَعْبُ بْنُ أَشْرَفْ فِي سِتِّينَ راكبا إلى أهل مكة أبي سفيان وأصحابه فوافقوهم وأجمعوا أمرهم وقالوا لتكونن كلمتنا واحدة ثم رجعوا إلى المدينة. So Ka'b ibn Ashraf among them went with 60 of their riders, made an agreement. Look, you and I are one. We're on the same page when it comes to the Muslims. And then they came back to Medina. فأنزل الله تعالى فيهم هذه الآية. Then Allah revealed this ayah. We're about to read this ayah. You know, their money and their children will be of no benefit for them. Allah is going to say in this ayah. And they're people of hellfire. It starts with إِنَّ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا, those who disbelieved. So this discussion became among Mufassirun, who are these people who disbelieved? Well, is it the Quraysh? Well, in a more comprehensive sense, it's the Quraysh, and it's the more subtle elements of the Jewish element that was conspiring with them. I hope that becomes clear. Okay. Another narration that's important to read. أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم لما أصاب ما أصاب من بدر, when whatever happened at Badr, meaning the victory happened at Badr, occurred, رجع إلى المدينة جمع اليهود في سوق بني قينقاع. The Prophet returned to Medina, and he knew about the prediction they had in Tawrat. He knew that they know that when this victory happens, this will be proof to them that he is the messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So he gathered the Jewish community in the market of Bani Qaynuqa. This is the Prophet addressing now the Jewish community. قال يا معشر يهود, gathering of Jews, أسلموا قبل أن يصيبكم الله تعالى بما أصاب قريشا. You better become Muslim before Allah strikes you with the same thing He struck Quraysh with. Allah's punishment came down on Quraysh because knowing the truth, they rejected it. If you do the same crime, Allah will give you the same punishment. This is the sunnah of Allah. And so as a prophet concerned for his people, understand something. Who are the prophet's people? Who are the you have to really understand this. The prophet's people are not just Quraysh. The prophet's audience, the one he cares about, are the Quraysh, are the Yahud, are the Nasara, are everyone. He came as a rahmah for who? Lil-alameen, for all of them. You and I, when we hear the word Jew, we sometimes have an allergic reaction. The Jews of Medina. Ugh. The Prophet ﷺ is speaking to them lovingly, caring. All the way until Hudaybiyah, when Quraysh wanted the blood of the Prophet ﷺ, he said, Mali Quraysh, what's wrong with them? Why is war warped their minds? Why can't they just think clearly? He came to give them blessings. If they just followed him, لَأَكَلُوا مِنْ فَوْقِهِمْ وَمِنْ تَحْتِ أَرْجُلِهِمْ. Life would have been good for them. They would have eaten from above, from below. Allah's blessings from above, Allah's halal blessings on the earth from below. You know, they following the Prophet ﷺ makes this dunya into a preview of Jannah. That's what it does. So he was concerned even for the Jewish community. He didn't speak to them as enemies. And so he said this to them, Ya Muhammad, la yaghurrannaka min nafsik. So they responded, don't get so full of yourself. They responded to him in the market. أن قتلت نفرا من قريش كانوا أغمارا لا يعرفون القتال. You just got to kill some Quraysh who were drunk. They don't really know how to fight anyway. This is what they said to him in the market. إنك والله لو قاتلتنا لعرفت If you were going to fight us, you would know. Inna nahnu nas. We are the real people. We're the real deal. You want to mess with us? This is what you're going to warn us of? The Prophet ﷺ wasn't warning them of him fighting them. The Prophet ﷺ was saying what hit Quraysh from Allah is going to hit you. And then, وَأَنَّكَ لَمْ تَكُنْ مِثْلَنَا. And you are not like us. You're nothing compared to us. فَأَنزَلَ اللَّهُ تَعَالَى قُلْ لِلَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا سَتُغْلَبُونَ وَتُحْشَرُونَ إِلَى جَهَنَّمَ وَبِئْسَ الْمِهَادُ. This is the narration of Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu about the ayah that we're about to read, or one of the 4 ayat that we're about to read. Ibn Ashur comments about this switch. The subject has now switched. The last subject we talked about was revelation, the dua of humility, of engaging in Allah's revelation, how revelation itself is a mercy, and all of a sudden we're talking about those who've disbelieved. Their money and their children will not be of any benefit from them, and they are the fuel of hellfire. وَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمْ وَقُودُ النَّارِ. This is the subject now. So he says, عَلَى عَادَةِ الْقُرْآنِ فِي إِرْدَافِ الْبَشَارَةِ بِالنَّذَارَةِ. This is the norm of the Qur'an. Allah replaces good news or follows good news up with warning, or warning with good news. Those two things go hand in hand. But the interesting thing is that the previous ayat were not necessarily bashara. They were not good news. Commonly you compare two opposites, day and night, hell and heaven. The reward of believers, the punishment of disbelievers. The victory of the Muslims, the loss of the disbelievers. These are the easy contrasts, yes? But in these ayat, وَتَعْقِيبُ دُعَاءِ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ بِذِكْرِ حَالِ الْمُشْرِكِينَ. It's an interesting follow. The dua of the believers is being contrasted with the eventual loss of the disbelievers. Those two things are being contrasted. Instead of reward for believers, punishment for disbelievers, the comparison is actually between the prayer that believers are supposed to make of humility, of engaging in Allah's word, versus the state of the disbelievers. And this is actually إِمَاءٌ إِلَىٰ أَنَّ دَعْوَتَهُمْ أُسْتُجِيبَتْ. It's really beautiful. It's actually it's a hint by Allah that their dua is actually been answered. And their dua, the believers' dua being answered, that their hearts are softened and their hearts don't deviate, that actually means victory is theirs. Victory is not in the formula that Allah has given in this beautiful ayat. The victory of the believers is not by sword, it's not by battle, it's not by military, it's not by money. It's actually by the heart being correctly guided. Then all the other elements of victory come. We learned this later on in the surah too. وَلَا تَهِنُوا وَلَا تَحْزَنُوا وَأَنْتُمُ الْأَعْلَوْنَ إِن كُنتُم مُؤْمِنِينَ. Don't be worried. Don't be weakened. Don't be worried. Don't be sad. You are going to be the supreme power if, in fact, you truly have iman. Where's iman? In the hearts. So you have here the contrast between the heart being set straight and disbelievers being annihilated by Allah. And which is a scary a spiritual reality. If disbelievers are on the rise and they have victory after victory after victory, then actually this might be an indication that the hearts are not straight. Because if they were, that couldn't continue. Which is why later, all the way at the end of the surah, you also find لا يغرنك تقلب الذين كفروا في البلاد. Their movements and their scheming, they go over there and make a scheme over there and they come back, and which way are they headed? What are they conspiring? Don't let that stuff bother you. Don't worry about that. What do you worry about? What should you worry? Engage yourself with isbiru wa sabiru wa rabitu wattaqullah. That's what you worry about. It's a profound, what should you concern yourself with, and what is not your problem? That's Allah to deal. That's something Allah will deal with. In any case, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا now. Actually, before I start these ayat, just a structural kind of a comment that'll help you appreciate the 4 ayat that we're dealing with today. You'll find, first ayah, Allah promises that they will fail in the future. Disbelievers, who the enemies of the Prophet, will fail in the future. Immediately after that, He will give a historical example of failure, the Pharaoh. Okay, so first, the promise of the future, and for you to be settled in that promise, He says, I fulfilled such promises before, and He gives the example of Fir'aun. Then He gives another ayah of what's going to happen, their failure in the future. Another one. And then after that, He gives another historical example, but this time He gives the example of what happened at Badr. So, twice He says they're going to fail in the future. In the first of these ayat, in the third of these ayat. In between those ayat, He gives historical examples. The first historical example He gives is of Fir'aun, the second, and those like him. And the second historical example He gave, what did I say? Of what? The battle of Badr. So one example is so far back, there's no, there's nothing left, no trace left. And the second one is actually recent history. They witnessed it themselves. You'll notice beautifully the ayah where Allah describes what happened with Badr, because it's recent history and they saw it themselves, it concludes, إِنَّ فِي ذَلِكَ لَعِبْرَةً لِأُولِي الْأَبْصَارِ. This is a lesson for those who truly possess eyes. Meaning what happened with the Pharaoh, a glimpse of that happened at Badr also. With the Pharaohs of your time, the Quraysh. They got a taste of that medicine too. So this is how the ayat are structured. Okay. Certainly those who disbelieved, لَن تُغْنِيَ عَنْهُمْ أَمْوَالُهُمْ وَلَا أَوْلَادُهُمْ. Their monies and their children will not make them independent. There are two ways of looking at the phrase لَن تُغْنِيَ عَنْهُمْ أَمْوَالُهُمْ وَلَا أَوْلَادُهُم. But before that, let's understand أموال and أولاد, money and children. It's generally, everybody knows what money and children means, but in the context of this, the history and what we're dealing with, money means the money spent on war. The money spent on war. When you prepare a battalion, when you prepare arms, and you set them off, you have to take food supplies with them, protection with them, animals with them. That's a lot of money spent into the military campaign that one is going to engage in. So that money is not going to be of any benefit to them. Then he adds, وَلَا أَوْلَادُهُمْ, their children, their sons. And this awlad is important because back in tribal society, when you sent into war, the tribes were not hundreds of thousands in population, they were just thousands in population. And who's going into war? Somebody's son. Somebody's awlad is going. So when war happens, then you have to spend amwal and awlad. This is the idea. So what they're sacrificing in order to gain victory, what they're sacrificing in order to defeat the cause of Islam is not going to be any good to them. And this manpower that they have, awlad, think of it as manpower, not just children. Nowadays we think of it as children. But understand, even in modern parlance, you say we've sent our sons and daughters into war. Isn't that the phrase they use? It's actually much more literal for tribal societies because it's literally somebody's son that you know that went into war, and somebody's daughter that went into war. Everybody had to pitch in. Every tribe had to pitch in. With the exception of one tribe, from what I recall, in the Battle of Badr, every major family of Quraysh sent soldiers, which means they sent their sons in the Battle of Badr. Right? So this is an important, and Abu Lahab didn't go, and he actually had to pay a soldier to go on his behalf. Right? Because everybody has to participate. Everybody has to, it's a draft. It's an open draft. So the phrase amwaluhum wala awladuhum should be understood in that way. But the interesting thing is the min Allah, the min part. And how do you understand min Allah in a couple of ways? So the first way is ala ja'li min al-ibtida' or min lil-ibtida' kama qala Ibn Atiyah tuqaddiru min ghadab aw tuqaddaru min ghadabillah aw min adabihi. What that means is, in simple English, those who've disbelieved, no matter how much money they have, no matter how much manpower they have, that's not going to be enough for them. It's not going to overcompensate them to get away from Allah, meaning get away from the punishment of Allah. What's coming to them is coming to them no matter how much money they have, how much power they have. I'm paraphrasing the idea of min Allah here as one of the notions behind it. The other can actually be min rahmatillah, tuqaddaru min rahmatillah, min ta'atillah, min amrillah, and the meaning is slightly different. Their wealth and kids won't render them not in need of Allah's mercy. Meaning, Allah is saying, just because you have power, just because you have wealth, does not mean that you are now independent and you have no need for Allah's mercy. You have no need for Allah's rizq. You have no need for Allah, or you have no need to obey Allah because you're so wealthy. This is describing the mindset. So there are two lessons here in this phrase. One lesson is people of power think Allah will not overpower them. That's min ghadabillah. Allah will not overpower them. We have too much at our disposal. There's no way Allah will overpower us. The other meaning is that because we have wealth and power, that just means that we don't need to ask Allah for mercy. We already have it. We clearly don't need to obey Allah because Allah seems to be pretty happy with us. We already have money. We already have power. So why do we need to seek Allah's mercy? Why do we need to seek Allah's obedience? We don't need it because we're already good. This is the mindset of Quraysh, but trickle that down at a very individual level and think about yourself and myself. When times are good, we start thinking, well, Allah's pretty good to me right now. It's not like I need to make extra dhikr or istighfar or dua. But when you're about to fail your biology exam, then you are close to Allah. Really close. Make dua. You're making dua and you're calling people, make dua for me. I have a test in an hour. Nobody's making dua when they're like, times are good. Things are chilling. Like, who needs Allah right now? I'm good. Allah is in case of emergencies, you know. It's like the sign they have in airplanes, right? When there's extra turbulence and the thing comes down, it's only then you put that on. You don't normally need to put that thing on. You know, why you have to remind yourself? This is the mentality of someone who is surrounded by luxury. And this is a disease. This is a disease that afflicts an individual, and if enough individuals have that disease, it becomes a disease for an entire society. And when that becomes a disease for an entire society, they don't just misguide themselves, they end up misguiding others. This is, you know, Allah gave Fir'aun and his mala, his generals, so much wealth. رَبَّنَا إِنَّكَ أَتَيْتَ فِرْعَوْنَ وَمَلَأَهُ أَمْوَالًا وَزِينَةً فِي الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا. You gave them so much money, you gave them such beautiful luxuries in this life. They had a more exemplary, remarkable, sophisticated society than any other nation, the pharaohs, right? And Allah, Musa alayhi salam says, رَبَّنَا لِيُضِلُّوا عَنْ سَبِيلِكَ. They got all this so they could misguide from your path. You know what that means? I mean, let's forget talking about the pharaohs. Let's think about someone who lived in a village somewhere, you know, in Pakistan somewhere. And they pray they hear the adhan every morning from their little, you know, their home, and they run to the masjid and they make salah, and then they get a visa and they come where? Good old USA. Or they come to America, or they come to Europe, or they go to Canada, and highways, lights, buildings. This is different. These people have everything. And you know, we take some of this stuff for granted. Talk to someone who just came from, they've never seen this stuff before, and they come here. What happens to them? Allah must be really happy with these people. Because they got everything. They just have everything. And they don't seem to have any need for what things? Salah, dhikr, shukr. They don't do any of that stuff and they have everything. Maybe I've been going about this the wrong way. They didn't have to preach you to leave your deen. They didn't have to preach to you to stop praying. They didn't have to tell you Islam is no good. Just by the way they lived and the lack of shukr they exhibited. Because you know, when Allah gives a nation success, they become a role model whether they like it or not. Everybody else wants to be like them. Everybody wants to be like them. Everybody wants to learn from them. Everybody wants to live with them. Isn't that the true of even not at a societal level, at an individual level? When you have someone popular in school, everybody wants to hover around them. When somebody's more successful, you emulate them. You take their example. That's what happens in life. So when a society becomes very economically, politically, socially successful in the material sense, then you don't just learn how to build roads or how to build universities or how to take their technology. You also take their mindset. What should be your priority? What should your emotions be like? What your personality should be like? You start taking that stuff from them too. As a matter of fact, you know what most people do? They don't take any of the things they should take. We don't learn from them how to build the roads or how to build better hospitals, but we certainly take materialism. We'll take decadence, we'll take heedlessness, we'll take shamelessness, we'll take all the other stuff that you're not supposed to take. This is the bad example that someone successful sets, which is why when Allah gives you more, then you have to hold yourself to a higher account. You have to hold yourself to higher, because people are watching. People are looking at you, and you messing up will mess up a lot of people. You understand? So now, لَن تُغْنِيَ عَنْهُمْ أَمْوَالُهُمْ وَلَا أَوْلَادُهُمْ مِنَ اللَّهِ شَيْئًا. They feel that they have no need. Of course, the Quraysh are particularly on the hook with this because the Quraysh are considered custodians of the house of Allah. They're considered the spiritual leaders of the entire region. Everybody has respect for them. So if they're this way, then that only sends the message for everybody else to be this way. They're setting that by example. Now, I've already tried to explain to you that the word الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا could refer to the mushrikun of Makkah and also includes the Jews and Christians of Medina. Now let's move on. وَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمْ وَقُودُ النَّارِ. First, their money and children will be of no benefit against Allah, and it doesn't render them independent of obeying Allah, is a reference to the fact that they will not have victory in this life. Because they use these resources to gain worldly victory. Allah is saying they will not get worldly victory. And then He adds, if that wasn't good enough, not only will this stuff be of no use to you, because all you get is dunya anyway. That's all you're going to get. You're not going to get akhirah. But on top of that, وَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمْ وَقُودُ النَّارِ, and above and beyond that, those in fact are the fuel of the fire. They're the ones that are going to be thrown into fire. Now, وَقُودُ النَّارِ are, things, dried up wood, that's thrown into fire is wood that has no other purpose. It's worthless. The only thing it's good for is burning. That's all it's good for. That's when it becomes waqud. Allah is in a sense describing these people think so highly of themselves because they have money and because they have manpower, and they think of themselves as more valuable than other human beings, and to Allah they are worthless. The only thing they're worth is being burnt. وَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمْ وَقُودُ النَّارِ كَدَأْبِ آلِ فِرْعَوْنَ وَالَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِهِمْ. Like what transpired with the Al of Fir'aun. I won't translate Al just yet. Well, there are two interesting words here, Dept and Al. I don't know if I've talked about Al before, but I will today. But let me explain the word Dept. It's unique. It's not very commonly occurring in Quran. وَالتَّقْدِيرُ دَأْبُهُمْ فِي ذَلِكَ كَدَأْبِ آلِ فِرْعَوْنَ أي عادتهم وشأنهم كشأن آل فرعون. Dept means two things: the case of something, the case or the story of something, or the legacy of something. Okay, the way someone did things over and over again. وَالدَّأْبُ أَصْلُهُ كَالْكَدْحِ فِي الْعَمَلِ وَتَكْرِيرُهُ. Dept originally means exhausting yourself in doing something over and over again. When you do the same thing and you have the habit of doing something, this is actually called Dept. Meaning كَدَأْبِ آلِ فِرْعَوْنَ, like the habit of Fir'aun. These people have the same habit of doing consistent disbelief. The Prophet invites them, they disbelieve. The Prophet invites them, they disbelieve. And they consistently disbelieve. They've gotten in the habit of it, just like who was in the habit of it? Fir'aun and his leadership. كَدَأْبِ آلِ فِرْعَوْنَ ثُمَّ أُطْلِقَ عَلَى الْعَادَةِ لِأَنَّهَا تَأْتِي مِنْ كَثْرَةِ الْعَمَلِ. This is why the word is used for consistent habit. فَصَارَ حَقِيقَةً شَائِعَةً. This becomes just a reality of someone. This is just how they are. You know when your habits become you? This is just who I am. This is just how I do. And that's the idea that's captured inside the word. These people are set in their ways now. This is just what defines them, this behavior. The word آل كل شيء شخصه وآل الرجل أهله وعياله وأتباعه وأنصاره. Al is used for a person, their identity. It's also used for their family, but it's also used for someone who closely follows someone else, or their aides. The word Al is also used Al al-Ra'iyya Sasahum, for political leadership. In other words, Ali Fir'aun, it seems to be the case that in Quran, Ali Fir'aun is being used not for the entire nation of the pharaohs. It's being used for the elite class of the pharaohs that were very close to him. And that was a dictatorship, and it was a kingdom. And in a kingdom, family related to the king, the Al of the king, they're actually the ones in political leadership anyway. You have to be from the royal family to be considered leadership material, you understand? So the word Al, like it's going to be used Aayat, family of Imran. But in the case of Fir'aun, it's actually the combination of the family ties and the political leadership together. That's Ali Fir'aun. Okay? Another term for them is Mala. The verb Mala'a means to fill, like imtila, to be filled. The people who filled the closest inner circle of the pharaoh are called Mala. Okay, only certain people get to be inside the Oval Office. Only some people get to fill that room. Those people are called Mala. Okay, the general transition is chiefs or leaders, but that's actually what that means. You know, like in old societies, also even in villages, there's sometimes a hearing. Like the elders are getting together and they're going to discuss some issue. Nobody else is allowed in that room. Only the elders are supposed to sit there. The يَمْلَؤُونَ الْغُرْفَةِ. They fill the room. Nobody else. They're considered the mala for that reason. Anyway, كَدَأْبِ آلِ فِرْعَوْنَ وَالَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِهِمْ. Like the leadership of the pharaohs and those who came much before them. Interestingly, Allah is not in this ayah criticizing the pharaoh so much as He is the leadership around him. This is an important small item, that Allah did not highlight the pharaoh as much as He did the circle around him. Why? Because actually, essentially, the only reason Fir'aun has power is because of the circle around him. It's perceived power. He's an old man. He can't even stand up straight. He has no power. The only reason he has power is his commander, his Haman, his other Hamans around him. They're the ones who follow every command he says. They give him authority. It's perceived authority. You know, even in our times, you know that sometimes you have a president of a country, and you have a commander-in-chief, you have or the general of the army, and the general of the army is actually giving the commander-in-chief power. If the general walks into the Oval Office with a bunch of soldiers and says, arrest the president, we're having court-martial, we're having martial law. Can they do that? Sure. It's possible. So the only reason a president has power is not because he's physically powerful. It's a perceived, acknowledged power that those closest to him, under him, are actually holding him up or her up. That's how that works. Now Allah is making that comment about Quraysh. Quraysh have perceived power. كَدَأْبِ آلِ فِرْعَوْنَ وَالَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِهِمْ. They're dragging all of their people into war, but it's only a handful of people that have perceived power. And people have done this before too. Leadership that blinds people. And people just end up following them or hand over power to them. كَدَأْبِ آلِ فِرْعَوْنَ وَالَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِهِمْ. What was their crime? كَذَّبُوا بِآيَاتِنَا. They considered our ayat, our miracles, a lie. فَأَخَذَهُمُ اللَّهُ بِذُنُوبِهِمْ. And of course, كَذَّبُوا بِآيَاتِنَا goes back to the first passage. Their real crime is rejecting revelation, which is what the entire first discussion has been about revelation itself. And now, again, the real crime is this. When Allah sends you a message, you reject it, you call it a lie. وَاللَّهُ شَدِيدُ الْعِقَابِ. And Allah is severe in giving a heavy outcome. Iqab is punishment, iqab is outcome, iqab is consequence of a bad action. Aqabahum means He took revenge, or He made sure they got the consequence of their actions. So Wallahu shadidul iqab. Here, Allah is pretty severe when He comes to dishing out the consequences for that crime. What crime? Rejecting revelation, calling revelation a lie. Of course, Fir'aun is the classic case of rejecting revelation because so many ayat came to them. Tis'a ayatin bayyinatin, one after the other. And even when all signs were clear, everything was absolutely made clear that this can only be from Allah, still he rejected it. As a matter of fact, a point came where even his generals were ready to accept it. They came to Musa without asking Fir'aun. They came to Musa alayhi salam and said, "Ud'u lana rabbak, لَإِنْ كَشَفْتَ عَنَّا الرِّجْزَ لَنُؤْمِنَنَّ لَكَ وَلَنُرْسِلَنَّ مَعَكَ بَنِي إِسْرَائِيلَ." Listen, you make dua to your Rabb. We've had enough. If you just get these diseases, these ayat that are coming on us, these catastrophes that are hitting us, if you can just make dua to your God, get rid of these for us, we'll let you go and the Israelites can go. Thank you, we've had enough. We've had enough. This is the point where they reached. لَعَلَّهُمْ يَتَضَرَّعُونَ, Quran says, so that they may be humbled. Quraysh were given these signs. فَارْتَقِبْ يَوْمَ يَخْشَى النَّاسِ بِدُخَانٍ مُبِينٍ. You wait until the red smoke covers the entire city of Makkah. And people are going to say, this is a horrifying punishment. This was actually one of the ayat that was given to Musa alayhi salam, which is why in Surah Al-Dukhan it's compared to the Pharaoh. They were given these kinds of ayat too, but it just wasn't enough to humble them. Badr was an ayah. Badr itself was an ayah that should have humbled them. It wasn't enough to humble them. So Allah says if they're not going to learn now, then Allah will deal with them as He should. قُلْ لِلَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا سَتُغْلَبُونَ وَتُحْشَرُونَ إِلَى جَهَنَّمَ. Very powerful. Say to those who've disbelieved, you shall be dominated and you shall be gathered to the gathering of hell. Again, two promises. One, you will lose here. سَتُغْلَبُونَ. Then you will ultimately lose there. وَتُحْشَرُونَ إِلَى جَهَنَّمَ. This is important also because who was secretly conspiring in Medina with the Quraysh? The Jews were. The Prophet ﷺ is no longer in Makkah. So when the ayah says, قُلْ لِلَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا, say to those who've disbelieved, it's not like the Prophet's going to travel ﷺ all the way to Makkah and say, Allah has given this ayah, I'm going to recite it to you. Who's He reciting it to? Clearly the audience sitting there is going, wait, he thinks among us are الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا? How did he know? You see, he's calling them out. The Quran is actually telling the Prophet ﷺ to call out the secret conspiring elements within the Medina community by the words قُلْ لِلَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا سَتُغْلَبُونَ وَتُحْشَرُونَ إِلَى جَهَنَّمَ. Notice also Allah could have said يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا سَتُغْلَبُونَ وَتُحْشَرُونَ إِلَى جَهَنَّمَ. Allah could talk to them Himself. Who's He putting as His spokesperson? The Prophet ﷺ. Why? نَزَّلَ عَلَيْكَ الْكِتَابَ هُوَ الَّذِي أَنزَلَ عَلَيْكَ الْكِتَابَ. The book didn't just come, the book came to you. You have to speak to them. You have to represent. You have to come forward and speak. This was their problem. Their problem isn't even with Allah. Their problem is, why is there an Arab prophet? Why isn't he one of the special chosen people prophet? Why not? Why is he calling out our previous crime? Their problem is with Rasul's person. And so Allah puts him in the forefront in the ayah. قُلْ لِلَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا سَتُغْلَبُونَ وَتُحْشَرُونَ إِلَى جَهَنَّمَ. Also understand the contrast here, very powerful. The contrast between the personality of the Prophet ﷺ and these words. Rasulullah ﷺ softest, gentlest human being, treats everyone with kindness. A Jewish, a funeral walks by of a girl and he stands up. I mean, he doesn't speak harshly to people. But the Prophet ﷺ's character and his demeanor, his personality are one thing. The word of Allah is something else. The word of Allah is full of authority. The word of Allah is aggressive. The word of Allah doesn't apologize. The word of Allah, Allah speaks. He's not speaking to an equal. He's not speaking to a fellow human being. Allah is speaking to His slaves. And a master speaks like a master. To slaves, the way they should be spoken to as slaves. And if they've been bad, they should be put down, put in their place. The Prophet ﷺ doesn't have that in his characteristics. He can't. He's a abd himself. So notice the qul in the beginning. You can't even say this on your own. He's making you say it. قُلْ لِلَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا سَتُغْلَبُونَ وَتُحْشَرُونَ إِلَى جَهَنَّمْ وَبِئْسَ الْمِهَادُ. This is actually one of those ayat in the Quran that teaches us that we don't apologize for Allah's words. We don't explain Allah's words to somebody else and say, well, no, it's not like this, it's like this. And, please don't be offended by it. Well, Allah is speaking, man. You're going to apologize on behalf of Allah's words? Rasulullah ﷺ had to recite the most offensive ayat to the Quraysh with no army behind him. No army behind him. And he's talking to the leaders of Quraysh. And he's describing them as arrogant and full of themselves and, these people come and they want to be treated like VIPs and the Quran puts them in their place. أَمَّا مَنِ اسْتَغْنَى فَأَنْتَ لَهُ عَنْهُ لَهُ تَلَحَّى وَمَا عَلَيْكَ أَلَّا يَزَّكَّى فَمَنْ شَاءَ كَفَرَ. Whoever wants to disbelieve in it, go, get lost. These people are used to being, thank you for making time to see me. Such an honor to meet you. Nope. Allah doesn't speak like that to them. Anyway, سَتُغْلَبُونَ وَتُحْشَرُونَ إِلَى جَهَنَّمَ وَبِئْسَ الْمِهَادُ. So this was the second promise. The first one was, we already covered, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا لَن تُغْنِيَ عَنْهُمْ أَمْوَالُهُم وَلَا أَوْلَادُهُم. This is the second one. Now he's going to make another historical reference. He made the reference to Musa alayhi salam and Fir'aun, and the leaders around Fir'aun. By the way, that becomes an interesting study by itself. These are isharat in the Quran. You should not just study the Pharaoh, you should study carefully what happened to those closest to the Pharaoh. That's a lesson. Those are sets of lessons by themselves, and that'll help you understand the mindset of the Quraysh. Okay? Is that a notification that my time is up or something? Okay. قَدْ كَانَ لَكُمْ آيَةٌ فِي فِئَتَيْنِ الْتَقَطَا. There certainly has been a miraculous sign for you in two groups, two parties that clashed, smashed against one another. Iltiqa is actually used for waves that crash against each other. Quran even describes maraj al-bahrayni yaltaqiyan. Iltiqa, when two oceans meet one another, clash against one another, when the two sides collided against each other. This is a reference to the battle of Badr. Already there's been a sign for you in the great clash between the two groups, meaning Quraysh and the Muslims, in the battle of Badr. في فئتين التقطا. فئة تقاتل في سبيل الله. A group that is fighting, a group that fights in Allah's path. وأخرى كافرة. And the other that's in denial, that's a disbeliever. Notice the word kufr is an anchor in this passage. إن الذين كفروا from the beginning. And then after قل للذين كفروا, now وأخرى كافرة يرونهم مثلهم رأي العين. This is a little bit of a complex phrasing. Ibn Ashur says deliberately complex phrasing. I would agree with him. They see them as twice of their own. Let me just translate for you first. The other group is a disbeliever and they see them as twice themselves, or twice of what they are. There's a lot of they here. They see them as twice of them. So who's the they, who's the them, who's the they, who's the them? Like that's the confusion, right? And that actually opens up a number of implications. One of them is that when the Quraysh, there are two places, I won't go into the second place now, but it's in Surah Al-Anfal, because it's describing Badr, and the detailed account of Badr is in Surah Al-Anfal. In Surah Al-Anfal, Allah will describe that, the enemy saw us and thought we were much less. We were actually made to look much less. And in this ayah, it could be one of the meanings is that the enemy saw us and he saw us as double what we actually are. So it seems to be a contradiction. But there's an easy resolution and a very profound one. From a distance, when they saw the Muslim army and they saw we were about 1,000, they were about 1,000, we were about 300 and something. 315, 306. Their numbers vary in the accounts. But just a little over 300. Barely any over 300. That's our number. So we're less than 1/3. We're less than 33% of the army of the Quraysh. So obviously they see us as much less. So in the beginning they seemed like nothing. When they actually engaged in clash with us, when the collision happened, you see there's the seeing and then there's the collision. Here we're talking about the collision now, iltaqata. When the collision happened, they start seeing, I thought they were much less. Are they like double what we saw? يَرَوْنَهُمْ مِثْلَيْهِمْ رَأْيَ الْعَيْنِ. Like their eyes couldn't believe, how are they everywhere? How are there this many of them? The thing is, when you are, I don't know if you guys watch a lot of sports, mashallah you don't, but maybe in tennis or some other sport, sometimes you have this team, you have this guy that's like reigning champion for three tournaments, and the opponent is a guy ranked 76. So even the champion, is he going to put his best serve? Oh, he's like, I don't have to put my full effort, because this guy is not even close to my rank. You understand? And even if the guy gets a point or two, even if it's like, he wins 2 sets, or 3 sets, it's like, I got this. And then all of a sudden he starts sweating like, this guy's going to disqualify me from the tournament. But by that time you're already shaken. Like, what's going on here? You were already way too relaxed. You weren't on your full guard. You didn't have your ducks in order. You weren't completely ready. You weren't as aggressive as you're supposed to be because you underestimated the enemy. When you actually engage the enemy, it turns out to be twice what you expected. That, by the way, the twice, there's another way of looking at it. Not just of twice of what they are. From 300 to how many then? 600. But the him could go back to Quraysh, meaning they got there and they felt like they're twice of us. They're 2,000. What's going on here? So that's another way of looking at the same ayah. مثليهم رأي العين. مثليهم يعني أنفسهم رأي العين. And so their perception changed because they underestimated. Another interpretation of the same ayah is that the Sahaba, 300 something, are looking at the enemy. How many times bigger are the enemy? More than 3 times bigger. And Allah showed them a mercy and made them look like only 2 times bigger. Instead of 3 times bigger, only 2 times bigger. And Allah's promise has already come. If there's 100 of you, you will easily dominate 200. Meaning, 2 times bigger you can handle. 2 times bigger you can handle. So Allah gave the Sahaba a mercy by making them look at the enemy. Oh, they're not 3 times as big. They're just 2 times nothing. We got this. And which is an ode to the Sahaba at the same time, because even if they're twice our size, that should be enough for you to say, I don't think we should be doing this. But for the people of faith, when Allah makes a promise that twice your size you can handle, they jump in. They just jump in. So these are the variations, and Ibn Ashur says that because the him, yarawna, and then hum, and then mithlayhim is used, that all of those possibilities can currently exist. Okay? Now that I've come to the end of, almost the end of these ayat, Wallahu yu'ayyidu bi nasrihi man yasha. And Allah gives Allah gives a hand by His aid. From aid. Ayyada, with the word hand. And the phrasing is used typically in the Quran for when Allah sends angels. Okay? So ayyadahum bi ruhil qudus, for example. Ayyadtuka bi ruhil qudus. So the aid of Allah comes, and the word, I believe the word aid comes from there, actually, in the English language too. Is when the legions of angels descend. And right now there's just a hint of that the legions of angels descended. Later on in the second half of the surah, we're actually going to see the full description of those legions of angels descending. Binasrihi, with His aid. And by the way, even then, the angels descending is not enough. They have to descend with Allah's help. In other words, the angels are helpless too. It is only when Allah's help comes with them. That's when they have some power. So Allah Azza wa Jalla says, Wallahu yu'ayyidu binasrihi. Binasrihi. As opposed to saying, Wallahu yu'ayyidu bi malaikatihi. No, it's by His aid that actually the help comes. Man yasha, whoever He wants. Whenever Allah decides, the material strength, numbers, resources, none of that actually matters. Inna fi dhalika la'ibratan li'ulil absar. In all of that, there's certainly a powerful, tear-moving lesson. A lesson that makes you cross over to the other side. Abara, to cross over. meaning a lesson that will make you change yourself and cross over to being on Allah's side. You know? For those who truly possess eyes, who truly have vision. So, إِنَّ فِي ذَلِكَ لَعِبْرَةً لِأُولِي الْأَبْصَارِ. So, the thing that I really wanted to highlight are the two case studies. The two case studies are the pharaohs and the Quraysh. And how Allah dealt with the Fara'ina and the leaders of the pharaohs, and how Allah dealt with Quraysh in the battle of Badr. And Allah Azza wa Jalla is teaching us that parallel should be kept in mind. This is important also because right now we just read وَأَنزَلَ التَّوْرَاةَ وَالْإِنْجِيلَ. And the Jews, of course, believe in Torah. They rejected Injil, but they believe in Torah, and yet they're siding with the Fir'aun of the Prophet's time. And they're being told in a very subtle way, you're supposed to be on the side that is equal to Musa's side, not Fir'aun's side. Why are you on the wrong side of this? You're the people of Torah. How are you okay with today's Fir'aun? Because the Prophet's time's Fir'aun is who? Is actually the Quraysh. Okay. Now I want to close this up. This is actually the end of our first section of the surah, and I want to give you kind of a structural view, very beautiful structural view of these ayat. 3 subjects is where the surah began. Easy to remember, just 3 subjects. The first subject was Allah talked about Himself. Alif Lam Mim, Allahu la ilaha illa huwal hayyul qayyum. Allah talked about Himself. The second subject was Allah talked about revelation and how it's a guide. نزل عليك الكتاب بالحق مصدقا لما بين يديه وأنزل التوراة والإنجيل من قبل هدى للناس وأنزل الفرقان. The second subject was revelation and how revelation is guidance. Okay, guidance and separates truth from falsehood and all of that discussion. So what was the first subject again? Allah talks about what? Himself. Then He talks about revelation and guidance. Then He said, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا بِآيَاتِ اللَّهِ لَهُمْ عَذَابٌ شَدِيدٌ وَاللَّهُ عَزِيزٌ ذُو انْتِقَامٍ. The third subject was those who reject Allah and His guidance are disbelievers who will have painful punishment. These were the 3 subjects that came up. Now listen. As the ayat continue, Allah says, إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يَخْفَى عَلَيْهِ شَيْءٌ فِي الْأَرْضِ وَلَا فِي السَّمَاءِ هُوَ الَّذِي يُصَوِّرُكُمْ فِي الْأَرْحَامِ كَيْفَ يَشَاءُ لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا هُوَ الْعَزِيزُ الْحَكِيمُ. Nothing is hidden from Allah, not in the earth, nor in the sky. He's the one who molded you in the wombs of your mothers the way He wants. No one should be worshipped in any way, shape, or form except Him. He's the ultimate authority. He's the ultimately wise. What's He talking about? Himself again. Which was item number 1. And now we're back to item number 1 again. What was item number 2? He talked about revelation. Now listen, the next ayat. هُوَ الَّذِي أَنزَلَ عَلَيْكَ الْكِتَابِ مِنْهُ آيَاتٌ مُحْكَمَاتٌ هُنَّ أُمُّ الْكِتَابِ وَأُخَرُ مُتَشَابِهَاتٌ. He's the one who sent the book onto you. Some of those ayat are absolutely clear. Some of them are a bit ambiguous. Those who have a deviation in their heart, they follow what is ambiguous to try to create chaos and to try to or come up with a final interpretation. And nobody knows the final interpretation except Allah. And those who are deeply rooted in knowledge say we have faith in all of it. All of it is from our Master. And nobody will make an effort to remember truly except the very few that have sound minds. Master, don't let our hearts deviate after You've guided us and grant us the gift of mercy from You. You are the one who gives gifts over and over again. You are the one who will gather people on the Day of Judgment, on a day in which there is no doubt left, or about which there is no doubt. You certainly do not go back on Your promise. This entire discussion is about what? Revelation. Guidance and revelation. It's actually a tafseer of the first time Allah said He sent the book. Well, how do you get guidance from this book? Well, you get guidance from this book by having the right attitude, by not letting your heart corrupt. So it's actually that second subject elaborated. The third subject was those who disbelieve. إِنَّ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا لَن تُغْنِيَ عَنْهُمْ أَمْوَالُهُمْ وَلَا أَوْلَادُهُمْ مِنَ اللَّهِ شَيْئًا وَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمْ وَقُودُ النَّارِ. What do you find here? إِنَّ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا لَن تُغْنِيَ عَنْهُمْ أَمْوَالُهُمْ وَلَا أَوْلَادُهُمْ مِنَ اللَّهِ شَيْئًا وَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمْ وَقُودُ النَّارِ كَدَأْبِ آلِ فِرْعَوْنَ وَالَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِهِمْ. The 4 ayat we studied today. What I'm trying to tell you is Allah mentioned 3 subjects and how they're related to each other in brief. Then He mentioned those 3 subjects again and He opened each of them up. This is the beauty of the opening of this surah. It's A, B, C, and again A, B, C. Subhanallah. Barakallahu li wa lakum fil Qur'an al-Hakim wa nafa'ani wa iyyakum bil ayati wa dhikr al-Hakim. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.